Awesome.
Okay. All right. So we are in page layout. What's today? Wednesday, June 17th. And we're going to start sharing screens here. So, Skylar, you're going to go first. You want me to turn mine off here? I'll unshare mine. Okay. So, Skylar, right down at the bottom of your screen where your little microphone is, right next to that is the share screen option to the right.
It says I need to go to security and privacy to enable it.
Oh, are you kidding me?
And it's locked.
It's
and
asking for a password. Okay. Do you have yeah, so you're not going to be able to share. Okay, how about this, Skylar? Why don't you email me what you've done? And what I want you to do is, I don't want you to send it as a InDesign file because it'll be easier without fonts and all that, and I'd have to teach you how to package right away. Just go up to File and go into, it's about halfway down, Adobe PDF Presets.
All right.
And just go into Press Quality. Everything from that point on, whatever options you have, your save and all that is fine. Just hit OK, OK, OK. Just save it to your desktop and just share that with me. And then I can pull it up on my screen and we can talk about some of the details that you might be challenged with. Okay, so while you're doing that, I don't want to hold it up. Brandon or Robert, do either one of you guys want to show? Robert's like, I'm working. Brandon?
I guess I can show you what I got.
Can you share your screen, or will it not allow you?
I'm on my phone.
Oh, that's right, because you don't have your Skype on there. By the way, Brandon, I forgot to tell you this, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier in the semester. Uku can add Skype to that computer, but you'd have to take it to school, have him load it, and then take it home again. So if that's something you want to do, he can schedule that. Good morning.
Morning. Okay, this is what I have so far. Oh, hold on. Isn't it showing? Oh, there we go. Wait. Oh my gosh.
It's okay.
Nothing much.
So just so you guys know, and I thought this was so cool, Brandon decided to do his newsletter all about his family and what they did during the coronavirus, which is actually some pretty cool stuff. Can you back your phone off just a little bit?
It's so now.
Right? Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so page 1 is looking good. What I would say is your text, where it starts, is a little tight to the image. I would probably give it a little bit more breathing room. Just moving your...
Wait, the bottom one or the top?
So the text that's to the top, where you see the trunk of the car, I would just move the text box down. So, yep. And then if you're not going to do a caption on that, which I totally get if you're not, I would say make sure the first paragraph, are you doing indents versus spacing between paragraphs? Which option did you decide to pick?
I really didn't do any of it.
Okay. So I would suggest just doing space between. And I'll share that with you guys again. I'm just going to take notes on things that you guys need to see. Okay.
Alright. Thank you. But how does it look? This is the first page.
Yep. So you need headlines. You need some headlines in there. At least in the beginning. And then some of that text, once you open it up a little bit, will push to the back page if you've got those linked together. Right?
Yeah. Okay, so you will help me with that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing that you need in your masthead is you need to have that like volume number 1 and the date. So make sure
Alright.
you put that in. I mean, you could put any volume you want, but because this is the first one you're designing, 1 makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then
fair enough.
again, if you look at the bottom of your text, like on the first column, the text is actually touching the box. So when we do your text wrap, we just need to add a little bit more space between there, or you can adjust how far down your text box sits if it is a separate text box. If it's all connected across all 3, then obviously we need to change the wrap part.
I just dragged the text box to the image and just stopped there. I didn't.
Okay, so they're all 3 separate text boxes that are just linked together?
Yeah.
Okay, so then are you going to do your multiple column text box on your last page? Because that's part of the requirement. One of your text boxes has to be at least 2 columns wide so that you're doing it the other way that I taught you. Which you can do back here. Yeah, you can do that back here. So you need some more text, but maybe some of the adjustments we make will adjust that. All right?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to need help on this.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Well, the hard part is that when you walk away from it for a week, it all goes out of your brain. So I usually suggest try working on it every day so that way you can build up, the way that your brain is processing that information. And I just want to make sure you're not losing that, because these skills that we're learning right now, the beginning stuff, is the stuff that we're going to be using the whole semester long. So by the time you get to the end of the semester, what we're struggling with right now, you're going to be like, I can't believe that was a problem. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to allow for you to be able to connect with all of that. So give it some time for your brain to process it, but don't wait until the Tuesday before class to work on it, because you're not going to remember everything, right? So, try and work on it Thursday or Friday so that way you can remember some of the details, rewatch the video from the week, maybe Saturday pick up and do a little bit, and then that way you're not just doing it all at once 7 days later. Because that's not going to help you.
What I want to share right now is that personally, I was struggling a little bit. I did realize that I was forgetting a lot of stuff from one class to the next.
Yeah.
So because I like video games, I started making like my own walkthrough and imagined Adobe InDesign as a video game, and I was thinking, okay, so the boss for level 1 is for me to place and understand the difference between placing and pasting, and so I wrote that down, and that was like my first boss. And then I remembered that how to do that, exactly that thing. And then I'm making a list one by one of the things that I need to do, and this list is helping me a lot because I am very confident about what I'm doing with the little list that I have so far. But yeah, I think I have to get dominate some of the things that we have already seen, and I think it's gonna take a little practice, but I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get there.
That's genius. What, are you a teacher or something, Christian?
Yeah, I was a teacher of little kids back in Mexico.
I know. That's why I was joking.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, let me share my screen so that way we can talk a little bit about some of the concerns that came up. Part of what I want to do is just make sure that I'm set here so that when I do this video, you guys can see my whole screen. So I'm just going to make some adjustments here. So bear with me for a second.
Perfect.
Okay. I think that's good. So thank you, Skylar, for that input because I wasn't paying attention last week. So, okay. So on this newsletter that I made, that's a dummy. This is my little dummy newsletter that you guys saw. We talked about a couple things. One of the issues that just came up with Brandon's was, are you going to be doing a multiple column text box, right? And you can see here, I'm just going to put my guides on. Here's my columns. This text box is 2 columns wide, right? So no matter what I do with it, it's always going to have 2 columns, whether I'm matching to my grid or not, right? So in order to achieve this, I got to get my Essentials Classic up here. In order to achieve that 2 column format, you have to be able to have the text box go across to the distance, which in our case, we can follow the grid that we created. And then you need to go in and apply how many columns that you want to have within there. So as long as the text box is highlighted, whether there's text in it or not, it doesn't matter. It'll allow you to change it. This is where you're going to come up and do that. So it says number of columns. Can you guys all see where I'm at up here at the top?
Trying. Oh, my layout is kind of different from yours.
Oh, I don't have that bar at the top.
Okay,
Me neither.
so that's the first problem. Remember how we talked the beginning of class when we started looking at InDesign. One of the features you have, can you guys all see where my mouse is?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make it really big. You got to go really fast. Okay. Over here, you have the option of changing it depending on the type of piece that you're working on, right? So if I was doing a book, I could set up to have my book format. I could do publishing, digital publishing. Usually the default, though, is Essentials, and that will not give you the bar at the top. You want to go into Essentials Classic, and that will immediately give that to you. And I think, Christian, we were having that problem with you early on.
Yeah.
So make sure you've got Essentials Classic selected. That will give you all the tools at the top. And if you haven't had those in the past, that might have been part of the problem that you were trying to deal with, figuring out how do I even go about doing this, right?
That was a big problem.
Yeah. So if you have your text box selected, you want to make sure you're coming up over here to number of columns, and that way I can change this right now. I can do 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever I want. So it doesn't matter. The computer doesn't care if you're following the grid with the text box. All it cares about is what you're telling this to do. And then, of course, right below that is also the gutter spacing. So this is your gutter here. It's the space between the 2 columns. And we determined that using our grid, and we called that at 0.25, which is 1/4 of an inch. That way the text doesn't get too close, and when I turn the guides off and you see it, everything is really readable and not too tight.
So wait, where is the thing that allows it to go into 2 columns?
Select on your text box using just your selection tool. And then over on the right-hand side will be where this multiple column option is. So you can have text boxes being linked to this, and then you can also link text boxes to this. So it can go either way. I just chose to do my multiple column as the first 2 columns, and then I linked this box to the next one here. So it doesn't matter to me. I could have made this whole page a 3 column grid, and then I would have chosen my top image here to do a text wrap. This image has a text wrap. This has a text wrap. So that way the text just slowly smooths around it. Brandon, does that make sense?
Okay.
So on your back page, from what you showed me, I would say make your multiple column text box back there, because you've already created the 3 on the front, right? And they're all linked together. And then you linked the last column in your first page to the first column on the second page, right? So take this text box now and spread it out.
Show them on the second page.
I would do it on your second page because you've already got your 3 individual ones on the first, right? So
Alright.
Go ahead, instead of just making it one text box, spread it out across all 3, and then come up top here and select 3 columns with a gutter spacing of 0.25. And you guys are all working with the same gutter spacing, so everyone should have a 0.25 gutter. Did anybody else need that information? Robert, did you need that information?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm slightly confused.
So we have 2 different ways that we can create text boxes, especially when we're using a grid. The first one is like you did on the first page where you took one individual column, right? You put a text box in it and you dropped your text. Or you typed it in, right? It's
Okay,
linked. It's linked to another text box, so the text is flowing, right? So you went down, there was a little red box, you clicked on it, you moved over to the next text box, and you dropped text, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But on page 2, part of this assignment is to teach you how to do a text box that is multiple columns within one text box. So these aren't linked to each other. This is just one text box, and I'm making a choice about how wide this text box is and the gutter spacing that's happening between each of the columns that I'm choosing. That's what this option is.
What I have right here, because I'm doing I have no clue.
So on the back page, you have one text box in there that already has text, right?
Yeah, and I did the 3 columns, and this is what happened.
Hold on a second. I can't see. So, okay. So click on the box and drag it all the way to the right-hand side to line up with your grid.
Wait, so all 3 of these?
So
Like
click
this?
on that little box right there and drag it over to the edge, underneath your picture on the right-hand side.
Alright, so something like this. I dragged it.
Okay. So go in and do your 3 columns now.
I did, like, right there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so you're not going to see text right now because you don't have enough text in there to flow into those other 2 columns, right? You are going to have to pull it up so that text falls between the 2 images at the top.
I could try to change the images just a little bit.
No, because I want you to put text wrap. That's the whole point of this, is to practice.
Okay, how would I do that?
Take the little icon at the top of your text box there. There's a little like square. Drag it up to the top and align it with that guide that we put in. Right? Yep, perfect.
Alright, now there's text in this picture right here.
Correct, because you're going to do a text wrap there. I'll review that too, right?
Alright,
And then you want to pull it all the way to the bottom of the bottom grid line as well.
the bottom of it, okay.
I feel like I'm on a ship watching you do this.
Like, that's what I did.
Okay, so now you've got it on all the whole grid is set up. So just like mine, I'm going to just make sure I'm on my screen here. Mine goes all the way around. So I'm going to just back off here for a second so you guys can see the whole page, right? So that red line that you see on mine, that's the whole text box. It goes all the way around the page, right? And that's now what you have, Brandon, right?
Alright, yeah.
Okay, so anyone else have questions about building a multiple column text box versus a single column text box?
Well, this was one of like my obstacles this week, and I think when I describe how these obstacles presented to my case in particular, I think I have seen half the answer here. So I'm paying a lot of attention. I took some notes here. Like in what I took notes for is Essentials Classic.
Yes.
Gutter spacing 2.25 columns 3 text box versus multiple column text box.
Mm-hmm.
Which is important for me to, there's a difference between just placing a text box individually or just like for you to know how many columns you want that text box to cover. So, yeah, I think we're doing really, really good right now.
Okay, so you're just writing down quick highlights of what we're talking about, which is great.
Yeah, great.
Just a reminder. Yeah, just a reminder for yourself. Okay, so everyone, are you comfortable with what you're doing with your text boxes? Those are the 2 that I'm requiring. I want to see those in your newsletter. So if you think that you've achieved that and you're comfortable with what you've done, then I'm going to move on because I think text wrapping is probably the next issue that some people haven't quite grasped. So let's talk about that next, okay?
I have a question real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
For the captions, how many do we have to have?
Honestly, if you have two, I'm fine with that. Because sometimes it's hard to put a caption in if the way that you've designed it isn't going to really support a caption, right? So, like on Brandon's first page, he has an image like I do here. This is kind of a weird spot to have a caption, right? So, because I've got a headline right below it. So, I'm probably going to skip that for this one, but it makes sense to do one here, right? It would make sense for me to do one for this one. It would just be at the top rather than at the bottom, so sometimes we have to adjust the position of them. But one of the key factors with doing captions is that you always want them to be the same distance away from the image. And Christian, actually, that was one of the things on yours. I want you to make sure that you're positioning them correctly. Because you're creating a separate text box, you want to make sure that you always have the text at a certain distance away so that there's consistency. So in my case, what I did is I came in and I created this caption right below, right? And you're just making it as a separate text box. I'm going to bring this up now while we're here, but this basically allows for you, and I wish I could bring that down, but I can't. But under Object, Text Frame Options, that's also Command B if you're interested in the quick key. This allows for you to ignore that text wrap. And Christian, this is one of the emails I sent you yesterday. I don't know if you got that one or not. Sorry, I took the day yesterday and just went outside.
I think it's important that everybody gets a break. It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Yeah. So this is one of those areas. And Skylar, just so you know, you're not going to be able to see because my InDesign is all the way at the top, you're not going to see it. So that's why I'm saying Object. This is under your Object area. And Text Frame Options is what we have to do when we have a text wrap on this image. Otherwise, this text you won't be able to see it. So it's really important that you go in and make sure you're doing ignore text wrap. But talking about the distance here, one of the best ways to do this is to come into your ruler, grab the ruler, click and drag, and always make sure that you're positioning this distance, right? So I can measure it. I can come in and say, okay, that's 1/8 of an inch, and that's where I'm going to position this caption. Sometimes it's not always friendly to move around. And so, see, I'm off a little bit. So now I can come in. I'm going to use my arrow keys to just bump that up a little bit. And now the top of my text is where I want it to be. So when I get to the back side, and I've got this other image, and this time I'm going to actually position it so that it's the same distance away from the text, but because it's going to be the baseline distance, sometimes this just gives me agita here. I'm still going to do that 1/8 of an inch, right? But I want to make sure any, what do you call it? I'll move that up just a tad. Anything that hangs. So when you have what they call a descending letter, that's going to be the bottom of that. A Y, a lowercase g, what else? P's. Those are all going to be lower. I'm going to use that as my guide, and that's not typical because usually we do baseline, which means the bottom part of all the letters. So I'm just going to go back up and steal this caption just so I don't have to do a new one, right? Just for purposes of showing you guys. And I'm just going to place this in. So anything that hangs, like this Y is hanging, I'm going to place it right on that line. That way I'm not getting too close to it, and that will allow me to be able to place it in. It's not sitting on the baseline, which would be this line right here, but I can't have this Y getting into this image, so I'm going to use that descender as my guide. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then that way all the text is the same distance away as you guys saw it. I'm trying not to scroll too fast because I know that gets everybody seasick. That way it's the same distance away as all of your cap heights and your ascending characters or any, punctuation. So it still has the same value there, and it allows for you to have that same distance. Now, as you can see, my text is way close to this image, and we have to have a text wrap on this in order for this to even happen, right? Otherwise it would be much closer to, or it'd be over the top of it, which is your problem right now, Brandon, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to come into layers. Remember I made 2 separate layers, one for my text, one for my images last week? Oh, you can move them. Select your image, cut it out, go to the next layer, paste in place. It's fine, you can still do it. All right, it won't affect any of your links or any of that or any of your text wrapping. It just does it automatically.
So I need to select every image.
You can select every image. I would do 1 page at a time. Go in and do your layer 2. But see how much easier this was? Because my text box, if I click here, it's on top of my image box, so I can't grab it. I'd have to physically.
How do I move them to a new layer?
You're just gonna click all of them. Hold your shift key down if you're doing multiples. Go up to edit and cut. That'll remove them all. Select the layer you want to change to. And then you're going to come into edit, paste in place. And that will put them exactly where they were on the new layer.
Okay, hold on. I need to move the text of it so I can select all of them.
Did anybody else forget to do layers?
Me.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
See, you're not alone, Brandon. They're just not as vocal as you.
Alright.
And I think I mentioned to you, I don't use layers as much in InDesign as I do in Illustrator and Photoshop. But it becomes really helpful just in a situation like this where I'd have to physically come in, move my text box over, click on my image, make my changes, and then remember to bring my text box back, which maybe I won't remember to do that, and then now I've got a problem, right? So if you're using layers, I can just go in, shut that text box off, and just grab my image. It's just a nicer feature. Did everybody fix their images and layers?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Now this image in here, I have selected. And basically, we need to make sure that this caption that I added is not getting text too close to it, and that the text isn't too close to this area, right? Now we know that this image or this text box, because I copied it from the other one, I went to Object, Text Frame Options to check it, but it does have the Ignore Text Wrap already part of it. And that's something that you can do if you have multiple text boxes you're using for captions.
Yeah.
Just make.
As soon as I switch it to a different layer, it's not even on the image anymore.
What is not on the image anymore? Well,
The text.
because your layer is above your text layer now.
Okay.
So now your image is on top of your text. It's still behind it though. We still have to fix that.
Never mind.
Yeah, we still have to fix that. So with this, we just want to double check. But you know, if this is something that you're like, I could just copy and paste and then type in new text. Yeah, you can totally do that. All right. So don't forget that you can copy and paste your different text boxes. If it already has the parameters that you're setting onto it, that's totally fine. All right. All right. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to stretch this out so that it actually sits. But I don't really like how this text is sitting on the left-hand side. I'd rather have coming off the right-hand side. So I'm going to use my type tool. I'm going to select the text, and I'm just going to switch the position. And up top in my toolbar here, I've got it set to flush left. And instead, I'm going to just choose flush right, so it'll always start here no matter what this says. So I could change that caption and say something else. All right, but we do have to come in and we have to change this because I need that text wrap to be something different, right? So I'm selecting the box, just using my direct select tool, and I've got it set to jump object. The text
Right, so-
wrapping, if you don't have it open, is up under your window. And you want to just open it up and say text wrap. Just go to window, text wrap, and this will pop up.
So wait, go to
Window?
window. So click the image, window.
Do you have it in your sidebar already? Do you have text wrap available?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
then go to window and open it up. A lot of
Okay.
times under Essentials Classic, it will be part of the window options.
All right, got it.
So I pulled mine off just so that you guys could stay focused on it. You can leave it over here in your stack if you want to, that's fine. But in here is where you have many options to choose from. No text wrap is going to let the text go over the top, which is probably what you guys have right now, because you haven't put a text wrap on this yet. You can also come into the next one, which is wraparound bounding box. This is going to allow for you to have an area all the way around the outside of this box to select to be able to push it. Now, with the image placement where it is, I don't really need outside here or at the bottom because I'm not going to put anything out there. And I definitely am not going to worry about here because the text is staying in columns, right? If I turn my screen back on, the text is never going to touch this image here. My concern is at the top where the text is actually coming down and hitting that image. So I'm going to just go ahead and say I only need to deal with that top bar. I've turned off my link and I'm just choosing the distance here. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to push this a little bit farther to a 0.25 instead of 0.125, which is what I had because I added the caption. And I want to make sure that that's at a good distance so that I don't have to worry about the text getting too close. And what you do have to consider is that what you see right now may not be where what the text is that ends up here. So you have to make sure it's going to work for any situation. So I'm going to actually push it just a little bit more to make sure, because if you noticed when I don't know if you guys could see that or not, it's really small, but this is the top right here, this light blue line. This is the top area that is saying, okay, this is where text can fall. If I change the point size or change the leading, it might actually push the text down a little bit farther. So I want to make sure that it's close enough and far enough away from my caption text, it will keep it a distance away. So don't just assume that what you have works. Make sure that you actually have this line far enough from your distance, and I can even go up higher if I want to. That way the text can never go below that line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you decide how much that distance is. I think I'm okay with this right here. And then that way, if I change my leading, if I change the font size, it will never go below. So anything that hangs like this Q or the P will never go below this line. And I think that distance is probably a really nice distance at that point.
All right.
Okay.
So I did the text wrap, and this is the result.
So you need to push it away from the box. So you are working with the bottom of your text wrap option. So your bottom number is the one that you want to be concerned
I
with.
have to unlink this.
You can unlink it, yep, and just work with the bottom.
And to have. Okay, this is good.
So you've got your box selected. Oh, there you go. See, you're moving it.
Yeah, just a little bit.
That's all you need to do. Just a little bit. Is there a song about that?
Yeah, I think so.
Where do you want me to go?
Well, are you putting a caption in?
No.
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay.
You're going to put a caption in, so you want to leave enough space between the caption and the text so that we know that the caption is part of the image. It's not part of the text. So it's a visual thing. I can't tell you the right distance. Mine is set right now to, let's see what mine is set to. Hold on. My spacing is 0.3125 distance, but that might not be enough. depending on your text. So,
Mine currently is 2.8125.
which might be fine. So that's why I'm
Alright.
saying everyone's a little bit different. There's no specific, spacing. You have to do it based on how you see it.
All right.
Okay? Does that make sense? So you want to add that text wrap to all of your images. And then when you bring in your caption text box, you're going to make sure that it has that, take off the definition under object, go into your text wrap options, and ignore your text wrap. Okay?
All right.
Because that one won't work otherwise. So I want you to try the caption box right now. Go ahead and make a separate text box. You can even do a separate layer if you want to, Brandon, just for your captions, just so you can practice doing layers.
So does that text box? No, I didn't want to add text box to the.
Nope. So deselect your image. Use your direct select tool, deselect your image, and then go into your type tool and then make a new box. And you don't even have to do it in the exact place where you're going to place it. You can move it around, right? So maybe do it above that image.
I'm trying to. I have to turn the text off in order to do this. Apparently,
You have to turn the text off.
because every time I try, I'm going to the third layer. Going to the third layer, but every time I go to the text,
Sorry.
every time I go to right here, if you could see it.
I don't know if your phone is actually still recording.
It should be.
Well, I feel like it's locked up.
On.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, every time I'm in the third layer right now,
Okay.
but
Make,
every time I click here, it just goes into the text that, cause it's filling up the whole thing.
okay. So this is where I'm saying, like, go off screen and make a text box.
Okay.
Use your type tool. Go into your green layer and then, and then type in,
Alright, makes sense.
here's my new computer that I'm doing online school with, right?
Online computer school.
Right. Computer school. Did anyone else have the same concerns? Any questions? Make sense? So, anybody have any other questions about text wrapping? Great. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we solved that. So, let's talk a little bit about your headlines. Now, I put in a few headlines last week just to try and help me be able to break up some of this. And obviously, you want to introduce anything that you're working on, because otherwise it gets really monotonous and it's all just, text.
Okay. I'm running into a problem because apparently the text wrap is also affected.
Correct. So what do you need to do?
Because this text is also being affected by the text wrap.
Does anyone want to tell Brandon what he needs to do to fix that? Come on. Give it a whirl. You got nothing to lose. All right. You're all chickens today. When you have a text box, Brandon, that you need to set next to an image that has a text wrap on it, you have to go up under Object, Text Frame Options, and at the bottom, it says Ignore Text Wrap. You have to select that box.
Okay.
So, with the box selected, go up to Object.
That worked.
You got
I
it?
got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the only place that you can change it. So you have to make sure, and make sure you're doing your captions in a different font, usually smaller than your body text, so it stands out differently than the rest of the text that you're using.
So just a different font?
Usually it's a variation of the font you're using or a different font, yeah. You know,
Alright.
it's usually lighter. It's not as heavy as the regular body text. So if you're using 11 point over 15 Helvetica, then I would say maybe make it Helvetica condensed light or something, or do italic, but don't do bold like that. Leave those for the headlines. A caption should be the third level of hierarchy within text. So you've got headlines, body copy, and then captions. All right, so let's go back to talking about our headlines. So in here, I offered for you guys to have the option of being able to work with larger text, right? So if we select this text and we come up top here, apparently I don't even have a, I'm just going to throw in, let's do, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to work with something a little bit more condensed. I don't know what I had in here before. All right, we'll do Franklin Gothic. That'll condense it up a little bit, and I can just make it smaller. So if we select the font that you're using, the font size is just as important, right? So I'm selecting 24, but then I can always just bump it up to fill the space if I want to. But keep in mind that you're going to be using this size and this font for any other headline that you have. So if I'm choosing Franklin Gothic BT with 27 point, I don't have to worry about leading because I don't have 2 lines. I definitely want to make those choices for the other headline that I have as well, because if headlines are inconsistent, we're not going to necessarily be able to connect that they're both headlines and both part of the same project. So it's important that you have that. So come on, give that to me. Thank you. All right. I also had all caps selected on that, which is an option here. So I'm going to choose that, and then I'm going to bring this back to 24. So that's going to be the headline size. Now, just because I'm keeping this across columns, which I showed you guys how to do last time we were here, but I'll show it to you again, doesn't mean it actually has to fit in all 3 columns. It can be smaller than that if that's the size that you think is going to work best in all the areas of your text. Now, if I found a more narrower column width or a narrower condensed version of this font, then I could make that work. And I could go larger, and I could make it fit probably into this space a little bit. But I'm okay with having some negative space here. It doesn't bother me, and sometimes that's a nice draw. That's partly why we do headlines, right? To draw your eye into certain spaces. So with that headline, it's going to give me the option. I'm going to come up to the top here. You may have it available already in your column, depending on how long your monitor is. And I'll see if I can stretch this out a little bit more if it pops in there. But you can choose to have multiple column widths. So I'm going to pop into my paragraph settings here, and you're going to start to see this option here. It's a span all is your default, or it'll say none, right? And this is going to allow us, and this is right next to the amount of columns I have in this text box, because you have to have a text box that has more than 1 column to do this. But if I'm going to span this headline, I want to be able to span all or span specific amounts. So in this case, I'm going to just do span all. If I don't have span all on and I do none, this is what's going to happen to my headline. It's not really quite the effect that I want, right? So if I click on it, highlight it, come in and do span all, it's going to allow me to go across both of my columns. This is one of the really great reasons why using a text box that has multiple columns in it rather than individual columns can work much nicer in your design, because now I have the ability to keep the text all in one box and I'm just crossing over between the columns. On the back side here, I did the same thing. Remember, this is a multiple column box. It's one text box though, so I allowed for that to happen where I made the decision to give this a span all. I'm going to turn that off, and again you can see it will just stack in one column now. So let's go ahead and do 2 columns because we know it doesn't need to go into the third one. So now I'm going to choose span 2, and now it's only going to span into both those spaces. And what that does, I don't know if you saw the difference, I'll do it both ways. It spans across, it pushes the text so that your first line is also set to a baseline. So let me get in a little bit closer so you guys can see that. All right. So if I came up top here and grabbed a rule, you'll see that it sits on the same baseline, but the third column, the text comes back up to the top. So visually, if you don't like this, where the text is continuing on, I can come back into this and I can say, you know what, let's span all. And now the text will only start where the other 2 have also started. Do you guys see the difference?
Yes, and I do appreciate that. I agree in that that space makes it less busy and easier to read, and I like that it's like more consistent all across the 3 columns.
Yeah, it gives you some negative space for your eye to take a break. But let's just say this, Christian, if you needed to fit 3 more lines of type in your document, that might be a really good way to get it back in if you had to, right?
Right.
So if you're trying to copy fit, sometimes those little spaces that we have, it will allow for you to readjust it. So, you know, these are the tools that are going to let you kind of make it work. So keep that in mind. So anytime you're working with a headline, make some decisions based on where you're using it in your piece. I have 2 headlines in here. I did one for the front, one for the back. You may decide that you want to have subheads, which is fine too. So Robert, I know you're working on a piece where you're talking about your grandma's family. And maybe this is the overall, like, you know, this is my, you know, Smith side. And I want to have subheads in here. So let's just say this first paragraph is introducing us. I'm just going to hit a standard return. Remember, I've got dummy text in here. And I'll say, what's your grandma's name?
Willie Mae.
Lily Mae. I'm probably going to... Is it M-A-E?
W-W-I.
Wait, did you say Lily Mae?
Willie.
Willie! Oh, okay. I was like, what? Where's the W in Lily? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this subhead, right? We're going to introduce Grandma Willie Mae, so I can change this. I'm going to come back up into my A over here, which is basically your character format, and I'm going to say, okay, let's do something different with this text. I'm going to choose a demi-oblique, so I have a little italic, a little bit heavier weight, and I'm going to just bump it up 2 points. I'm going to go to 12 because I'm at 10 right now. But instead of just keeping that, right, that would definitely catch your eye, but it may not be enough because I might want a little bit of space. So, Christian, we were just talking about that, how space can really be a good difference. I'm going to put in a little space above, which is down here, just to add a little distance between the previous paragraph and the beginning of this little piece of information about Grandma Willie Mae. And it's not a lot. I mean, I could do more, but I don't know that I need to. It's just enough to visually go, oh, look at that. There's a break here. And look at that. I've got a new person I'm going to learn about. And, you know, what happens, and I know, say this is, the next section here, I'm going to do this, talks about Grandpa Willie Mae, right? Just because it's easy. And that was probably how he was referred to anyway, if she was a very strong woman, right? So my husband jokes that pretty much everyone that knows me, he introduces him, I'm Janine's husband. That's how he gets introduced most of the time. So, but it just happens that way. But now I have, sub pieces within this, and I'm just making sure that I've got that little bit of extra space that happens. Visually, see how nice that looks?
Yeah.
right? It just breaks it up and it allows your eye to have new spaces. Now, you'll notice that having these next to each other sometimes can cause a little bit of trouble, but sometimes there's also not much you can do about that. So you have to make sure that you're visually creating less alignment, I guess, when it comes to this stuff. But, I mean, you can't always control the text. What I can do is maybe take a line of text out and see if I can make that work. Of course, you can't do this because if you're writing, you can't just remove text. I have dummy text, so it doesn't matter. I like that much better. Right? So it just gives you a little bit more information to be able to process. But that subhead could allow for you to have just a slight difference. All I did was come in, I chose a bolder italic font, I bumped it up 2 points, so it's not taking over the headline, it's just allowing me to have a visual break as I go through the piece. Christian, did you have a question?
No, I was just looking at what you're doing, and I was thinking. I took a note that I'm gonna try to focus right now on aesthetics over content because I want to practice that. It doesn't matter to me that I include all the content right now, but to see that it looks neat, like what you're doing,
Yeah.
and just like the spaces end where I want them to end and stuff, and so. Yeah, it's really it's a lot to absorb.
It is.
And I'm so happy that this is being recorded because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to watch this maybe another time.
And that's okay. And I feel bad that we're not on campus doing some of this stuff. This is probably a pretty hard class to be a student in. I've been working in page layout since 1990. And, you know, when you have that much experience, you kind of forget that this is all really difficult when I learned it too, right? But now I can do it in my sleep. So the goal is for you guys to get to a point where you feel really comfortable making some of these choices about your type. And of course, I have had years and undergrad and graduate work working with typography. So as much as there's a course just about type, if you're not including those ideas in what you're starting with now, then it's pointless, right? I want you guys to start thinking about type as part of the design and making good choices with type, right? So,
Well, you know, Janine, something that is really incredible about this class is that I totally agree that I would say that your two classes are the two classes that I feel I should have, like, I should be with my classmates and in a room and with you.
yeah,
Because it would be so much easier if you were just like, all right, so scoot over, let me grab the mouse, check this out.
right.
It would be so much faster that way. But,
Yes.
one thing that I think is not only working, but it's changing the way I look at everything is now, because everything has letters. Now everything from a cereal box to anything I have in my hands, anything that has letters, I'm thinking about fonts.
Good.
I'm like, oh, look at that font. Oh, look at that other font. Oh, look at that space. Oh, look. And so when I grab a magazine, I'm thinking about how someone had it like this at some point, and it's including the masthead and issue number 1, blah blah blah. And so it's incredible to see how like everything I see around me now has its own story.
Yeah.
And there was someone behind it making those decisions, you know?
Yes. And they all started at some point. Someone made a decision about the font choice. Someone made a decision about the lettering. Someone made a decision about the spacing. And I know that seems monotonous and maybe not important, but watch this, right? So I'm going to click on my text, and I wish I had style sheets on. That's that's the next project. I don't even have the same font in here. That's terrible, but I know I was doing some stuff with you guys. So if I grab my text, right, one of the things we talked about was what point size are you going to be working with, right? And I mentioned this, I think, in Kazala last night when we were all chatting. right? Don't forget that just because the default setting in the computer is 2.5 points larger than your text, that's the right choice, right? So if I chose 10.5 points, I think that worked out nice. I have the ability to come in and modify that, right? So maybe I was at 14.5 when you first saw it. Now I'm at 17.5 or 17. I think it was 17. Yeah, I went up to 17. So you see the difference in the page? It opens up the text a lot. It gives you a lot more space between the text, right? So this is where, as designers, we get to make these adjustments, right? I'm going to take it back down to 14.5, which is what I had. Look at the difference, right? So this is where you get to choose how you're going to take this. Now, sometimes the choices happen because we have too much text and we have to fill in the spaces, right? Sometimes we don't have enough text and we need to open it up a little bit. There's times that we go, okay, you know what? I have plenty of room. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to give a wider gap. So there's going to be a nice big space. Look how different this image now looks than when the text and the headline was closer, right? Like this is where you're starting to make choices. Just choosing color. I'm looking at my swatches here. I have this set to purple, but what happens when I make the choice to make this blue? It visually changes everything about the page. And this is what you guys have to start to recognize, is that every design choice you make, and especially the negative space on the page, which right now I know you don't think is as important, but the negative space can have a huge impact on how people are seeing the final work all together as one. You've been at it for too long now to start to see that stuff sometimes. But when someone picks it up for the first time, what is their impact? What is the thing that makes them excited about this, right? And sometimes when we work on a project for a really long period of time, we lose that ability to see that. And it's really good sometimes to print it out, which unfortunately is something we don't have, in class. I tell people, print stuff. Hand it to the person sitting next to you. Have them tell you what they see, what they would do different. Because, Christian, that's exactly what I'm asking you to do, is start to train your eye to start to see things differently. I want you to start to look at fonts. I want you to start to look at negative space. I want you to look at everything you see in a different way, or I am not doing my job, right? Because I want you to analyze it all, and I want you to become this typographic nerd that you never thought you would be.
Well, I just have to say that, like, thanks to you, I have, as of right now, just like my mind just like created like this. I have become like this, not one trick pony, but I was so just focused, be within my own style, my own ideas, my own, and now that the floodgates are open, I'm just like so amazed by all these possibilities that are so endless.
Right.
Just like forcing me to see other people's ideas and like other styles and to just see that everywhere around me. It's a little overwhelming, but I keep thinking to myself, oh wow, what was this done? Oh wow, like look at this space, like what you're doing. Everything that you're doing when I wake up sometimes and look at the front pages of I have a godfather in Mexico that sends me on PDF just quickly all the front pages from the Mexican newspapers.
Okay.
And now I see all the different styles of fonts and everything, and it's just incredible to see it.
There's so many options, right? So many options. And that's the thing, we limit ourselves just as people, we limit ourselves, right? It's not even as designers, but as people. So this is kind of supposed to open your eyes a little bit that, you know what, you don't have to ever be limited. You can do whatever you want and you can explore whatever you want. And I'm still learning today at my age, which I'm not that old, but old enough to, kind of get stuck in your ways. And I have so many of my friends that are like, oh, you can't do it that way. It'll never work, and it's like, yeah, sometimes experience is really important, But the other side of it is that, well, did you at least try? Did you try something new? Did you even attempt to make it different or better? Right? Like that's the thing where you have to explore. I think I mentioned I was never a huge fan of. I was always a realist, even though I love surrealism too. But surrealism was definitely out of my wheelhouse because I just can't think that way. And I know that, but I just love, like, Salvador Dali is my favorite artist of all time. He has been forever. But I've learned to come to appreciate more like impressionistic art and even modern art, because there's something about the way the space on the pages, the colors and how they're placed, the textures. So it's not just about like, well, my 2-year-old could do that. It looks like someone just threw paint on the canvas. But it's really about like what's there and what inspires you. And sometimes it doesn't. I mean, Jackson Pollock was really interesting and it was a totally different technique. And some of his paintings I look at and go, yep, it's not doing anything for me. And then others I go, wow, that is really incredible. Right? And that's where you find new ways of looking at some stuff. And that's all good. That's a really good thing. Because when you stop learning, that's when your brain dies. And you don't want that. That's never a good thing. Keep it fresh. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh. So there's my new image. It's a little bit of Venice for you today. All right. So what other questions do you guys have? We've now covered the columns. We've covered adding in cross headlines. We've done captions. We've done text wrapping. What else do you guys need from me?
So if you think it's a good time for me to share my screen and just show you a couple of things, maybe you could.
Oh, I know you've been waiting for this. Yes, let's share your screen, Christian. That would be a great idea.
Okay, cool.
Let me turn mine off. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so.
Oh, look, I'm the only one with a picture.
Okay.
Okay. So now you can see my screen then?
I can, yes.
Okay. So what this is going to. Okay, so this is where I was like last week.
Yes.
And I remember that there was a situation with this that didn't look as cool because like I should maybe cover the entire masthead and have the information in it. And so what I ended up doing is I can close this. How do I go? Oh, file. Open recent.
Yep.
Newsletter. Okay, this one. Oops.
Maybe try the next one.
Oops. Cancel. Oh. So, okay, let me just gonna close and open it again. Okay. And then so what I did was I ended up enlarging the image so that I could have like the complete masthead, and then I chose a font for the newsletter and included volume 1, issue 1. I don't know what I did here that I created like 2 like text boxes.
Yep.
And I don't know how to get rid of one.
Go up to your direct select tool, the first arrow in your toolbar on the left side.
This one?
Click on that. And then select the text box you don't need. It looks like you might have it selected now. Hit delete on your keyboard.
Oh no, I did.
Okay, do the other one then.
Okay.
There you go, and then hit delete.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so that was one thing that I was like, I don't know how to do that. Okay.
Whenever you guys question anything about getting rid of something, just select it and hit delete, and worst case you just do undo, right? So
Okay, all right. And then so then where I was at is like I would select text here, and I wanted to like start writing I wanted to make like a box, but then I thought no, it's not about making a box. It's about like selecting the entire thing, and then just skip the images, like skip this one and skip this one. And then I was like, well, but yeah, what I should do in this one is I should maybe just like create a box in here, and then a box that covers these two columns.
you can.
So I was thinking about doing that, but then I don't know. You see this blinking thing here? I didn't know how to go back to choosing the text boxes, even though I'm here with the type tool.
So that's where your layers are going to come in, Christian, right? So if you have a layer just for your images and then a layer for your text, you can use the eyeball to turn them on and off. So that way you're not trying to get something that's underneath something else, right? Yeah, so if that's your text layer, then just shut your image layer off and drop your text in. So one thing you had asked about yesterday too was you wrote all of your text in a Word document, right? And I tried to give you like a written description of what you should do, but maybe we can go over that here too, because someone else might have done the same thing or just did it in a email. Now you can always copy from anywhere. You could just select whatever text, copy it, and then paste in here. So like if you went up to File and just did paste, you could paste your text in. But because you did it in Word, which again, you could go into Word, copy it, and then paste it too. But you can go up into Word and do File Place, just like you did all your images, and just get your Word document. When you've got a highlight like this already in a text box, it will allow you to place the text in.
Okay. So
Skylar, was that you?
How do I go to get the ability to create text boxes again instead of this thing blinking here?
So you're in a box right now that what you've done is turned it into a text box. So just leave the type tool, go back up to your arrow, your direct select tool. Yeah, click on that, and then so you have a text box in here. That's the whole area. Do you want to keep that?
No. Let's say I want to go back to I want to get rid of that.
So go ahead and hit delete on your keyboard.
Oh.
Right? Anytime you're not sure. And look, you already have one there.
Oh. Okay. All right. So that was like one of my main concerns about the captions. Like this needs work, the spacing and everything. But with all you've taught us today,
yeah,
I think we have enough resources to work that out.
Great.
My next issue is in here. As you can see, I have the space for the masthead here, and what I would like to do is to have these three images up here.
Correct.
So that I have obviously more space, because it wouldn't make sense to have this empty space here.
Correct.
So I don't know how to move all of this stuff.
So I want you to click on the left hand side, the picture of him when he's a young boy. Not on the picture though, off the picture.
Oh, on the picture.
Yep. I want you to click above it, like go up a little bit higher to the left hand side. Yep. A little bit farther. Nope. I want you to go. Don't select anything yet. Just move your mouse over to the left a little bit more. To the left. There you go. Right there. Click, and I want you to drag, and I want you to grab all three pictures and all three captions. There you go.
Like this?
Yep. Then let go. Okay. And don't worry about the text box that's also selected. We'll deal with that later. I want you to hold down your shift key.
Okay.
And you're going to drag those three up.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Like this?
Yeah, just like that.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Right?
Okay.
So you can do it all as one unit, even though they're separate pieces. by just clicking and dragging. Now you can also make multiple selections at one time. Anytime you're holding your shift key, like you could have gone in and clicked on each, hold your shift key, click on each picture, clicked on each caption, but sometimes just clicking and dragging goes faster.
That is awesome. Okay, so let's see. So once I finish falling in love with the type here, with the font and the color, and
Yeah.
I've decided to make the background image black and white because no matter what font or size I tried, just because of how busy and colorful the picture was,
Yeah.
you couldn't read it. So I decided to go black and white, and then it's not like super perfect, but you can make out what it says.
Yeah, and
So-
that's why I suggested maybe just pick a sans serif font that doesn't have those little thin serifs. That's what's getting
Okay.
lost. Go a little bit heavier, and I might consider a condensed to help you get it a little bit narrower so it doesn't get so close to his head.
Oh, all right. Okay, so I'm taking those notes and making those modifications.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work on the captions. I'm gonna populate these with the text. So, for example, let's say I do this then here, and I remember that we were talking about like how here on hold on, insert. Yeah. Where was the where you can populate the whole thing with
Say that again. You're with text? Placeholder text?
yes, exactly.
Yep, down at the bottom there should be an option for placeholder text, but you have to have the type tool selected.
Oh, that's okay.
Yep.
That's what happens to me sometimes with that. Okay.
Yep, so come into your text box. Nope, just select it with your type tool. Click on one of your text. Yeah, just go up to your arrow and delete that box that you just made.
Oh, okay.
Just delete. You hit delete on your keyboard.
Okay.
Go to
alright.
your because you
I
already
didn't
have
know
that.
how to do
Yep. Now go to your type tool. Go in.
Now I can make, for example, I can make the decision to just go and do a text box here, right?
Correct. Now,
And
if
then
you go up
if I
to
want to get rid of it, I just click here, and it gives me the chance to delete it, which
Correct.
I didn't know how to do before.
Yes.
and it was driving me crazy. Okay.
so you have all
Okay,
these
so if I
extra
go to
things.
Text and open a text box like this,
Sure.
big, and then I can go and do what you said I could with.
So second from the bottom. Yep. Fill with placeholder text. There you go.
Exactly. Cool. All right. So how was it that I could have the text go from here to here to here by jumping these two images?
So go up to your arrow tool. All right, and if you look over on, let's see, is it up there? I'm sorry, I'm trying to see your screen here. It's just small. Yeah, okay, go over 3 more to your right. 1 more, right there. See where it says 1? Nope, back up 1.
Yeah.
That's your columns. If you click on it, do 2, 3. Yep, there you go. Right? So there's your columns. And then right below that, you want that to be 0.25. That's your gutter spacing. Yep, that's what I was showing Brandon this morning too. So you want that to be 0.25. And then this would be your 3-column gutter. So obviously your text box is not quite to format to the grid, but once you get that fixed, that will allow it to sit in there the right way.
Oh, okay. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And so if I want to say, I don't want to be on text mode, and that's why I go photograph, right? For the
So
layer.
right now, because your text is on top, that's your red layer, right? So what I would do is I would come in and turn the eyeball off on your red layer. Get rid of the text so it's not even in your way. Come over with your arrow tool, not your type tool. But arrow
Okay.
tool, go over to your, not there, but anywhere else on the picture. Just stay outside that. Yep, there you go. Because if you get the brown square, that means it's just relating to the picture and not the box, and we need to apply the text wrap to the box. So
Okay.
now, if you don't have text wrap available over on the right-hand side, go up to your window.
Okay, yeah, the text wrap is something somewhere over here.
Under window up top here, it's next to view on your top. Yeah, there you go. So go into window. Nope, you have to go into window. It's next to view. It's the one next to view.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yep,
I see it.
yep.
Okay.
And then go into text wrap.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah.
And now you can add the text wrap. So go over to the second one over.
This one.
Yep. And now for you, because it's that immediately pushes the text away from that image, but because you have a caption, I would do the middle, unlink it. There's a linking button in the middle. I would unlink it. Go down. See right in the middle between where it shows you.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
And then use the bottom option to add the spacing you need to make sure the caption and the text don't interfere with each other. So it's the second one down on the left. Yep, right there. So you'll see a little line start to show up. Keep pushing that down. Do you see your little line? It's going up now. Yeah, you want to go the other way.
Oh,
Now don't worry that it's pushing it. That's okay. Keep going. All right, perfect. Leave it just there. All right. That's going to be the text wrap that you're going to use for this image so that we can also have that caption. So just leave your text wrap window there and come down and just grab that little text box that you have. I know you're not seeing the text anymore, but the one that you have the caption in below his picture, just select that text box.
okay, so I need to see it.
No, I think it's actually on your image layer. It was showing here a minute ago, so just grab it. Yep. Don't right click. No, nope. Stop making pictures.
Okay,
There you
that's
go.
it.
You got it. It's not going to let you do it. So now I want you to go up under object. Stop moving it. Stop moving it.
Okay.
This is where I would grab your mouse and be like, just give this to me.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I feel like a blind person.
Well, you're doing really well. Go up under
Okay.
object
Uh-huh.
and go down to text frame options
Uh-huh.
and click ignore text wrap right at the bottom. There's a little button down there,
Okay.
right? And this is what I was showing Brandon earlier too, and hit OK. See what happens?
Oh, cool.
It totally doesn't care about the text wrap anymore. It just says, okay, it's there for other things, but not for me.
All right. So for example, then if I want to do the same with this one, I go here, and then I go.
Did you close out your text wrap?
No.
Where'd it go?
Oh, I don't know.
Just open it again. Under window, just go in and open it again.
But this is what's cool that I needed to know. Like now, when I go and see the copy, it's not over the picture.
Correct.
So
Correct.
That's what I needed to know, how to jump that way.
Yes, that's text wrapping. And like I
Okay.
said, you can choose if you need to wrap it on all sides, if you just need to wrap it on top. You know, like it'll automatically let you choose that. So it just depends on what you're working on. So like this image here, you haven't done yet. That one only needs text wrap to the top because you don't have to worry about the side because it's a 3-column grid, and you don't have to worry about the right side because that's the edge of the page. You don't have to worry about the bottom. You know, like it just depends on where it's positioned. And like the one I showed you, I would consider putting your caption actually at the top of this image rather than the bottom, and let the image sit at the bottom.
Okay, so
Right?
for that, for example, I click here, I get rid of this, and then now I
You
can
could just-
do
yeah.
this, and now I move shift down.
Yep.
Like
And-
that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. See, it's so cool. Now, I go text, and I put the caption here.
Or you can also copy the one you already have done and that you already put the parameters on to avoid the
Okay.
text wrapping. Yeah, delete that. Just copy and paste that one over, and then just change your text.
Copy, paste in place or paste?
Paste, because you're moving it anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So now you already have that text wrap option feature that you put in, so you don't even have to apply it again.
like that.
Yeah, and then look at your distance. I mean, obviously that one's too close up top, but make your choice.
So for me to do that, I have to
You can
click
use
on
you can use guides if you want to. Just drag
guides.
it. Yeah,
Guides.
you can.
Where is-
So you look at your toolbar right above your masthead, and just no, but down. No, it's not in that window. It's right below it. It's a black ruler. See it? Click, just click and drag. There you go. And you can bring in any guide that you want, and then you can set your text whatever distance you want it to be away from your picture.
Like how about here?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a visual choice, right? We want it to be close enough that you're making the connection that text goes with that image. But like the one you have up top, like that's a little too close, so you have to make the decision how far, and that decision may also be affected by the rest of your text. Like it just might be the size of the font or the X height of the font could affect how far away it should be.
Okay. And so, for example, here, how do I get these sentence down here?
So typically I use my arrow keys, the up and down arrow keys on my keyboard. And that allows me,
like this.
Yeah, it allows me to move things in a smaller increment.
That's awesome. How does this look?
Too close.
So here maybe.
Yeah, that would be better. Give it a little bit of breathing room.
So I can do the same here with this other one then.
Yes.
Like here.
Yep, and then sit it right on that line.
Oh, hold on.
Yep.
Okay. Like this.
You got it.
Oh my God, you are great. Thank you so much. I was just like yesterday. I remember yesterday I was like clicking here, and it's just like I was like, no, I'm not. I just can't. Okay, so I'll do the same for these ones.
Yeah.
And then I populate the text, and I will try to write something not super boring. Is there any way that? Is there any suggestion as to the font that the size of the?
So I think I posted in Kazaa last night. Like stay around 10 or 11. If you're using a sans serif type, you can get into 10. If you're using a serif, I would definitely stay at 11. I mean, obviously it depends. If you're using Schoolhouse, it's got a huge X height, so you could probably do 10 with that too. So that's the thing. Every font is different. So I can't give you exact because, it is what it is. Just 12 is really big. So, I say 10 or 11, you pick. You're still in early stages. I'm not going to get all antsy about it.
Okay. So everybody, and Janine, of course, any other suggestions or whatever, like if I follow those things, would these be acceptable to turn in as of today?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay,
These are the pieces that we're looking for. The only other thing I would say is that you haven't tried yet is the image of your brother. I feel like he's a little cramped in there. Can you bleed that image off the page? Maybe give him a little bit more room in your masthead?
This one? Oh,
Yeah.
So I'm totally going to follow your advice. I'm going to change the font and let him breathe over here and get that stuff over here.
But go up to your arrow tool for a second.
What should I do?
Go up to your arrow tool.
Okay.
And I want you to grab that image. Go ahead. Not yet. Not the text.
Oh, the image.
Yeah, the image. And I want you to drag it out. No, leave it where it is. Go grab one of your corners at the top. Pick a corner, left or right. And go ahead and drag it right out to the red bar.
Okay.
And then do the same on the other side. Yeah, see that red line? That's your bleed line. No, in the red line.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just teasing. All right. Now you can stretch your image a little bit, and it gives it a little bit more. Stop dragging it.
Sorry.
What are you doing? You're going to make it a little bit bigger, and this is where you can go into the circle area once you get it positioned. And you can go up to let's see, which one is it? You don't have it highlighted right now, so I can't tell you. Click on your circle. Is it going to let you? Just shut your text. Is that on the same layer?
Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of the text right now because it's gonna
Okay,
be
you're okay. All right, so click on the circle.
Uh-huh.
And then, stop moving for a second here. I need to show you something up top. All right, click on the circle. I need you to highlight that for me. Okay, up top here where it's, let's see, it's the third section over. It looks like a horizontal line and then a T. Do you see it at the top here? Yeah, right there. Go back. It's next to right in there. Click on one of those arrows, up. I want you to go up.
Oh.
Okay, so this allows for you to change the size of your image and also keep it proportionate. That's what that little link tool does next to it. It keeps it proportionate. So if I see that you're skewing your images, you're going to lose points. So you want to make sure you check that, and this is for everybody. Check to make sure you're keeping those two numbers top and bottom of each other, but you can only see this when you click on the circle in your image. But Christian, go ahead and make this bleed right off the edge. Make it bigger so that it's actually pushing it right to the edge. Okay, so you still have to get your your image box to push. Right now your image box is a little bit too small.
Jenny, how do I make it so that I get rid of this white around it and I just have like the complete mascot covering like in your newsletter?
Use your arrows to go up a little bit and to your left. No. The arrows on your keyboard.
Oh.
Because right now you're in the image area. See how you're shifting it? So if you see that brown is actually your whole image. And if you click on the circle and hold it down, just click and hold on the circle. No, don't move it. You're not listening, Christian. Don't move it. Just click and hold. Just click and hold. Like you got to let go now because it's not going to do it. So just click and hold.
Uh-huh.
You got to click and hold. You almost had it. Just click. You're not in the circle. You got to do it when you're in the circle.
Oh.
Click and hold. Don't let go. And it should show you the whole picture. See? So you know how much your picture is, and then you can decide where you want to crop that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so...
Okay. To your right...
I want to expand the image this bit so that
Correct.
It gets rid of this white. So I click on this here.
So right now, because you're in the inside, you have to deselect that. So click somewhere outside your frame. Go over to the gray area. Yep, just click. And then you can come back in and change the size and position of your image. Yeah. So now just go to the middle one and just, whatever, and just stretch that out. Okay? But you have to, in order to see the whole image, you have to click on the circle and hold it down. I know, it's really hard to explain it, but you did great.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't know. I was just, thank you so much. I really, this is more of what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do it, so I'm so super happy because now I can just like, I can just like make small modifications. And
right.
Thank you so much.
So I want you to do one more thing before you shut your screen off. I want you to just turn your guides off so you can kind of see what this looks like without guides on. Use your command colon keys.
Where is that?
Command colon on your keyboard.
Oh, what should I push on the keyboard?
Command colon.
Command.
It should be right next to your space bar. And and then the colon key or semicolon. They have the same key.
Oh, okay.
So just click on your command key and then hit the colon. See it? All right.
Oh, cool.
Right? So now you can see how it looks without all of the guides on, and you can actually see your design.
It's pretty simple, but I really like it.
Well, sometimes it's good to just see it like this without all the stuff that's behind it, that's building it, just to make sure that it's what you want, right?
Yeah, how about those blue boxes? Is that
Yeah,
another-
you can shut those off too. So if you go, so obviously the one that's at your masthead, that one's on right now because you have it selected. So you could just click on your desktop anywhere that you're not near that, and you could turn that off. Just click. Yeah, just click anywhere. Okay, so now if you go up to view in the top area here and go down to extras, and the first one, hide frame edges, that will turn everything off. And I did mention that in one other video too, because that is something that annoys me. I hate that on, but some people like it because they want to see when they're first starting out where the bounding boxes are. So it's up to you. If you like it on, you can turn it on. If you don't like it, you can turn it off. It's a default setting in InDesign. It will always go on every new document though.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Okay?
Thank you so much, Janine. I am really satisfied with your tips for today, and I will be working on this today
Awesome.
and sending you. So should we send you once we're done with it a PDF or?
That's
the
what we're going to
InDesign?
do next. We're going to
Okay.
make the mechanical next, and I know some of you are not done, but we're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
I think this is the best. I added some adjustments. This is the best I could get.
Well, hold on a second, Brandon. We're just finishing up with Christian, and then we'll take a look at yours, okay? All right. So, Christian, are you good with everything, and all of your questions are answered?
Absolutely.
Okay. We made it through it.
So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then for you to keep on going with this.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, Brandon, you want to share?
Okay. This is what I have for the first page. I did some adjustments.
Hey, look at you. Now, did you include your headline into the text boxes, or did you do it as a separate text box?
Separate.
Okay, because you were doing individual text boxes, right?
Yes.
Okay, so going forward, just FYI, if you had made that a 2-column box there, you would have been able to incorporate that right into the text box. So just keep that in mind.
Alright.
Just keep that in mind as you're learning InDesign and you're moving forward, that you've got some options. I think the 2-line subhead that you have where you've got workspace up top in the 3rd column, I think I would tighten up the lettering a little bit, and I probably would also drop the ampersand and the word new so that the visual of that works out a little bit nicer. And you can just put your text, no, don't delete it. Don't delete it. Undo that. Okay, just put your cursor right in front of the ampersand. And then just hit Shift Return. We call that a soft return. And that pushes text without doing too many weird things to it. And then I want you to select that whole subhead.
Wait, what?
Select both lines of your subhead there. And I want you to go up to your leading option, and I want you to take 2 points of leading out.
Wait, which one's leading?
It's the one right below your point size for your font.
Oh, wait, what?
So where's
Is it the one that's side by side?
It's the one right below your font setting. So if you've got your font selected, and right next to that it says the point size, and then right below that is your leading.
Oh, so the one right here?
Correct. Yep. So I want you to take 2 points of leading out. How does that look? Does that look better? A little bit tighter?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm going to have you do one more thing. Hold on, one more thing. I want you to go ahead and add spacing below this, just to add a little bit of space, because it's a good size.
How do I do that?
I want you to keep it selected. Keep that line selected. Yep. And then up top in your window, you're going to come over, and there's going to be a series of, I can't even say what they're called. One says left indent, one says right indent, and then there's one that says space before. It's like a box above a bunch of lines with an arrow next to it. It's right in your toolbar in your essentials. It's a visual. It's not under the window option.
In the Windows tab?
Nope.
Wait, where?
Get out of your Windows tab. It's probably right behind that. So up top in your essentials window, you're going to see a number of different little icons, and you're looking for one that's got a box above a series of lines. And you can highlight over it. It'll tell you if it says space below or space above. So move down the row a little bit here to your right.
Wait, where is it? I can't find.
Keep going to the right. It's not there. Okay, right in here. And it should be the third one over on the bottom. And if
the one that says ignore?
I want you, it shouldn't say ignore. It should say, okay, I'm sorry. It's the next one. Go up one and over to the right one. What does that one say?
0 inches.
Just hover over the name. Yeah, hover. What does it say?
Faster.
That's exactly what you want. Use the arrow up and just click once. There you go. Take a look at that on screen. How does that look?
Oh, that looks good.
It just adds a little bit of space, so your attention changes. And that's what you're looking for. Okay?
Oh.
So I would do that after your other one as well. Just add that little space after. Yeah. Go in and add that little space after.
All right.
You lost your highlight. Go back and highlight it again. Otherwise, it doesn't know what to apply it to.
I already did.
Oh, okay. All right. And then the only other thing I would say just is that you haven't added the space between for your paragraphs. So you started out with an indent. I would take the indent out. Yep, just delete that extra spacing there. And then anywhere you have like other paragraphs, I would say go ahead and do that. And it looks like your other subhead from the back page popped in at the bottom there. Go up to your first page. You have another subhead that you put in right above the picture on the bottom right.
Oh, new roommate.
So if you need that on the second page, maybe go in and add a little bit of leading to your text. What are you at with leading right now? So you'll have to select your text to find out. Select your first section of text there.
Which one's the leading again?
The leading is the one right below the point size next to the name. So it's the second one. But you have to select the text first. Yeah, it's that one. But you got to select
19.2.
Okay. So look at your text. And what's your point size? I can't see.
19.2.
Your font size is 19.2?
No, the font size is 16 point.
Okay, you can't be any higher than, ready? 10 or 11.
Okay.
So I would say 11 if you're really trying to fill up space. You might have to write some more, Brandon. So 11 point type and then do your +4 leading on that.
Oh.
All right?
Okay.
Like if you're doing 11, add 4 points to your leading, that's 15, right?
Oh, okay.
Does everybody else understand that? Skylar, Robert, Dawn, any questions on that?
No.
Dawn, if you have questions, feel free to put it in chat, by the way. Robert, go ahead.
Leading.
Say that again, Robert.
Where can we find the lettings?
So when you're in the Essentials Classic, it's going to be right next to your choice when you're making type. So I'll pop my window up here while Brandon's finishing up. So in the top left-hand corner is the font name, right? If you click on that, that's where you select your font. Right below that is the family. So I'm in Minion Pro, and I have options to go into regular or italic or medium. And then actually right next to the family is your letting. That's going to be your letting. Right above that is your point size.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so those are always in the left hand side. Those are if you have type selected, that's what's going to show up. Some of the other stuff it changes its position, so I can't always tell you. But that for sure, if you have type selected, that's where it's going to be.
Okay.
Robert, did you want to share anything that you've got today, Skylar?
I just had a question.
Yes.
In the last video, you said something about indenting the paragraph, but I want to know how to do the thing before that where you put like spacing between each paragraph.
Yeah, so they're both found kind of in the same location. So, but you can't do both, right? So you have to pick one or the other. So on this one that I'm showing, I don't have my screen share on. Hold on, let me share my screen with you so that way you can see what I'm talking about. All right. So when you come in and you start looking at point size and letting, right? Those are all good, but the spacing, so I chose to do an indent here just to show you guys, and that can be found in the spacing area. So this whole section off to your left hand or right hand side window, you guys see what I'm pointing at over here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is your indent, right? If you are indenting all of your text. And the one right below that is where you can do first line indent, which is perfect for stuff like this because then we can indent every first line and have your first line indent. Now, if you are choosing, right, so we're saying, oh, we don't want to do first line indent, you want to do space. I'm going to turn this off. And now I can come in and I can do a space above, or I can choose to do space below, your choice. But I'm going to go ahead and do space above, and this is going to allow for me to adjust any spacing between paragraphs. Now the downfall to this, Skylar, is that if you have put a solid return in the middle of a paragraph, because you're going to have to fix that and make sure you take the solid return out. And that little technique I just showed Brandon, where he did the soft return, the shift return, that actually allows you to make a return and push text without having an issue with this spacing option. So if you have to push text because there's something weird about it, do the soft return, hold your shift key and hit return, and then you won't get a space if you're going to do that as your introduction paragraph, right? If you're going to put the space in rather than do the indent. It's just a little typography trick in InDesign. And I know it doesn't make sense to you right now, but we'll use it more as we go in, especially next project when we get into using style sheets. It'll make more sense. But I show you how to do it all on the outside, so when we get into style sheets, you're like, oh my God, this is so much easier. Okay.
All right.
So any spacing or indent or any type of that stuff you can do right in here. And I will tell you, this all is like genius, because the only other way you could have done this was to go in and actually do indents and that kind of thing with tabs. Have you guys ever done any tab settings in Word with the little ruler at the top and all that? Has anybody, you've done that? That's how we used to have to do it all. Now it's just a pre-programmed like, hey, I want to do this, right? So if I decide I want this paragraph to get pushed in, I literally like hit that and I'm like, oh, I want it to go in on that side too. Yay. You know, like I can literally make this happen so much faster than going in and setting tabs and making all that work. So it's pretty awesome. Your lives are much easier now. I'm jealous. So, okay,
Okay.
any other questions you guys have about format?
Yeah,
Now,
Go ahead.
okay.
um, do we have to stay inside of the margins?
So when you're working with your text boxes, I want you to stay within your grid, right? So you should be aligning to your grid. If you want to choose to bring an image outside, whether it's down off the bottom or up into your masthead or off to the side like I did here, you're more than welcome to. Okay? I think I did that on my second page too. I've got my images bleeding off the top.
Mm-hmm.
So you can totally do that. You can have your masthead bleed like I was just showing Christian, like mine is, right? And let me show it to you without the... So I'm just going to go up to view and go to screen mode. I know you guys aren't going to see this on the video, but if you go into your preview, that's what's going to look like without anything on it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So now you don't see all the extras hanging off the edges. That's what it would look like printed. So yes, what I would say is you can definitely do bleeds. And you can play around with, how this image or how this graphic, is positioned. But I would have all of your text stay within the grid format.
Okay.
Because that's the reading stuff. That's the stuff we want to be able to read. All right?
All right.
Any other questions, Robert? Are you good?
Let's see. So you said all of our text has to be 11 point, right?
10 or 11. Yep. I know you guys are all going to pick 11 because you don't want to write as much. I get that. I'm not going to pretend, Skylar, any questions on your end?
Nope.
Okay. You feel confident with what you've got and where you're headed with it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's see if... Let me just check in with Dawn here. She's a little behind everyone, so I just want to make sure.
I just need to adjust it for everything first.
Yeah, you just got to kind of do your final tweaks. Okay. All right. Well, hopefully she'll get back to me if she has any questions. Okay, so let's talk about this mechanical that you guys need to do for your final piece. Now, why is a mechanical important? And what is a mechanical? So, back in the day when we used to do everything by hand, we used to take a big flat piece of mechanical or big board, like a big cardboard piece, and then we would set crop marks and we would get our blue pencils out because Rapidograph Blue doesn't show up on the stat machine, so you'd get all your crop marks set and your page alignments, and then you would start taking all your text, you'd send it out and have it copy set, so you'd have to go to the typesetter. Hey, Brandon?
Yes.
Can I just have you put you on mute for a second just because it has background noise? I just want to make sure everybody hears this. Thank you. So
I don't know what background noise.
no, it just happens. It's not anything crazy. It just happens. It just makes it easier when there isn't any. But anyway, so the mechanical, we used to take these boards, we used to rule it all out. We would actually send out for copy. We would tell the typesetter exactly what point size, how much leading, how much tracking, how much kerning had to happen. And then they would send it back to us on these little pieces of paper that was like a photographic paper. And then we would glue those down where we wanted them to go. So there was a lot of alignment and rules and setup. And then we would take our pictures and be like, that's where I want that. And then if we were doing some kind of overlay with it, we'd put Ruby on it. It was a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal. Thank God I only ever had to do 2 of those, because I think I'd want to shoot myself after that. It was like a lot of intense work and glue and waxing, and then you'd get it to the printer and then something would fall off and they'd have to redo it, and it was crazy. So when the computer came along, that was about the time that I started working electronically. When I was in college, I immediately took to the computer. I loved the computer, and I had been using a Mac since 1987. So for me, it just made sense, and I wanted to know everything about what this machine could do because I thought this was the best thing ever. And after I did my first mechanical, I just looked at my creative director and I said, listen, there is a better way to do this, and we can do all of this on the computer and then give the printer an electronic file. And they were like, what? Really? You can do that? And so we had 4 computers in-house, and all we were using them for was to do typesetting. So we didn't have to pay to have it do it anymore. And I was like, no, we can do all this on the computer. And they were like, there's no way you can do that. Like, this is how far we've come, is that we don't even think about not doing this on the computer, right? So there's a huge jump. And I know it's been a few years since the 90s, and here we are today in 2020, but this is what we used to do all by hand. So for you guys to have the ability to do all this electronically and now be able to take this and make it work, this is incredible. You have no idea how incredible this is. So with this InDesign file now, you have the option of being able to take all of this stuff that you put into it, images, text, any graphics that are part of the file or that maybe you imported from Illustrator, and we're going to go ahead and collect all of that, and that's what we call packaging. And if you go up under File, and you go down to the bottom in your print area, it says Package. And that's the one that you're going to select. And in here, it gives us a nice little summary of all of the things that we have in this file and all the things that this file is going to package together. And I can break it down one by one, which is great because this is our summary. It just tells us everything. We already know right away that we have a concern because we've got a yellow exclamation point. Does anyone remember what this little exclamation point and the yellow triangle told us earlier when we were working with images and links?
Yeah, it's something that has to do with links.
Yeah, it definitely has to do with links, but do you remember what that was when we had it in our links window?
That maybe one of the images or elements in the project is missing connection with like the source.
So it's not quite the connection to the source. That would have been a red like stop sign, but you're right on track there, Christian, because what it means is that this image moved somewhere else and we don't know where it went. We're not sure, right? We're not what happened. Like, you could have modified it, you could have just resaved it and didn't make any changes, but it's not sure what happened because it doesn't know. It's just the computer, it can't think. So let's take a look and see what our concerns are. I'm going to tell you what they are, but so in the fonts area, this is going to tell you every font that you chose to work with. So I worked with Minion Pro and I worked with Franklin Gothic, and I had a couple different variations of Franklin Gothic that I worked with. It's showing the status okay on all of them, which is a thumbs up for me. That is perfect. It's also telling you the type of font that you use. So some of these are true type fonts and some of these are open type fonts. Doesn't matter. The printer doesn't care. As long as they're all attached, thumbs up for me. All right. The next one is links, and this is the one that we're concerned about. Now, you'll notice, and I did this on purpose, the first one here is showing that it's embedded. Remember I showed you how to embed an image? Well, I left it embedded, so here it is. It's not going to package with the rest of this because the font is, or the image is already attached to it. It doesn't have to collect it. Okay. Now I only have a few images in here, and one of those happens to be a painting that I did. It's an AI file, but I've saved it as a PDF. That's perfectly fine. You can import PDF files. You can import AI files, which are Illustrator files. You can import JPEG. You can import PS files, which is Photoshop files. So any of those options is totally fine. Now, these all look good. It's telling me they're all linked. So what do you guys think might be the problem why we're getting this symbol? I've stumped you, haven't I?
Oh, okay. Maybe that two use RGB color space and the other doesn't.
Christian, you're a genius. Yes. So we talked a little bit about RGB color versus CMYK color, right? Anytime we have an image that was taken on your phone or that you brought in from an electronic camera, it's going to come in as an RGB because that's how it's tracking, right? It's related to light, and your computer uses RGB color. But when we go to print, everything is set up for CMYK because that's how the printers print. We can't print RGB color. Just can't happen. Or not in this lifetime anyway. So RGB color is a question mark for InDesign to say, well, if you're packaging this, then you're probably sending it out to print it. Are you sure that's what you want to do? The beauty of this, and in the old days, we would have to go in and actually convert these to CMYK, but nowadays the printer understands how to adjust for RGB images, so we don't have to modify these at all. They're set up for RGB, the printer understands how to convert them, so we're good to go. So this warning symbol is only here because the RGB is set up in all of my images. But again, you're fine with that. Just know that that's why it's checking. Now, this may also come up if there's a problem with a linked image, so just double check this area too when you're working, just to make sure that everything is linked properly, okay? So that's what this warning is all about. It's all related to the RGB color format. But like I said, your thumbs up with me. As long as you're linked, you're good to go.
So we don't have to make any changes. It's like just
No.
bringing this to our attention.
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
It's bringing it to your
We
attention.
will only have to make changes if the triangle is red.
Correct. Yes, that means something's not linked, and you better go find that. And I guarantee you, some of you are going to have that come up. So there's kind of ways around that, and I can't show you because mine are all linked. But there's actually, like, if I click on these and it comes up as a concern, there's going to be an option to choose this update button here. And you can then go out and link that image back in right here in your package. So you don't have to cancel this and go back out to your links window and do it again. You can actually update it right in here. Okay? All right. So now that you know what the concern is with the triangle and you know it's related to RGB, let's move on to colors. So why is this important? Well, if you're printing a 4-color process image, and we're sending this to the printer, I'm actually going to pay quite a bit more money to have this piece printed, because not only do I have 4-color process, but I also have 2 Pantone colors that I chose. So I have 4-color process inks and 2 spot inks, and so that's going to cost me a lot more than printing 2-color. So as you guys, we talked a lot about color the one day. I would have to go back into my swatches window, and I would need to convert these 2 Pantone colors to CMYK. And I showed you that how to do that too. But either way, I selected them, and I would just need to convert them to make sure all I had listed in here was just the CMYK colors. Do you want me to do that right now? Do you want me to show you? All right. I'm just going to hit cancel. We haven't changed anything, so we'll be able to come back to this point. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to come back into my swatches. I'll pull that up here so you guys can see it. And the 2 colors that it's questioning are this green color and my orange color, right? So let me just change my view so that I can get it so that it's a list, so you guys can see the color values of those. So there they are. So here's my Pantone orange, right? So if I double click on this, it's going to allow for me to bring it up in my Pantone colors, right? I can come up to my color mode then, and right here, I can switch it to CMYK. And that's going to automatically convert it over. I can even change the spot to process, so that way, for sure, it's going to save as the CMYK. And if I want to, if I want to know what the original color was, I can leave this. Otherwise, I can click this box, and it will automatically convert the name to the color CMYK that it's using. So it's up to you if you want to do that. And I'm going to hit OK on that now. So now I know that's converted. You can also see the little icon over here is changed. See the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Right? So now I know it's definitely been converted. I'm going to do the same thing here. Double click on this.
Sorry, why is Pantone more expensive again?
Okay, so Pantone color is like going to the store and buying a bucket of paint, where CMYK is the 4-color process that's going to allow for you to print. So if you're going to print the 4-color process and 2 more Pantone colors, now I'm on a 6-color press versus a 4-color press. See the difference?
Okay.
So you would have to print 2 additional colors that are independent of the CMYK, but the 2 colors I chose, I can print in CMYK. I don't have to print them just as its own bucket of paint color. Now, sometimes we do this especially if it's part of brand guidelines. So let's just say, for instance, Kodak, right? They have 2 colors in their standards. One is Kodak red and one is Kodak yellow. And they actually own the rights to those colors. They are trademarked. You cannot print using... Oh, yeah. Yes.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
This is very, very common. They own those colors. They had them specially mixed, and you cannot print in those colors ever. In fact, when printers print for them, and there's only it's like a handful of printers that print for Kodak, they have to sign a waiver that they will keep those colors protected and never use them for any other client. Yeah, it's like proprietary. So
that is insane. I never thought about
color, right?
Trademarking colors.
Yes. So their colors are so proprietary that many times, anytime they're doing like a big high-end brochure or packaging, they get printed in Pantone colors because the mix is always perfect. If I print on different types of paper, whether it's like a box for film, which has like a more of a coating to it, or if I'm printing on a letterhead that's like an uncoated paper, it can look completely different when I print in CMYK. So now you're getting a little bit of production today too. So we get to cut our afternoon class a little short. But the reality in the end is that with Pantone, I'm always going to get a perfect color, right? You put it on the wall, it looks exactly the way that you intended it to, and matches the color chip. When I print on different types of paper with CMYK, it varies and it changes, and that might not be what the client expects. So sometimes we have to print the Pantone in order to do a perfect match.
Oh, so CMYK is kind of like markers. If you use it on different paper, it looks different.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yes. Great example. Thank you, Skylar. So that's the challenge of working with CMYK, and every printer is going to be a little bit different. You've got amazing eyes working with these printing presses, but everyone's going to look at it a little bit different. Everyone sees color differently. So with CMYK, you're taking the chance that the pressman is making that final decision, and it's exactly what the last pressman did, which may not be the case, right? And we know people see color differently because we have color blindness, so we know that for a fact. So it's a hard thing to match. We just know what we've been told, but if you give me this bucket of 308 paint, it's 308 every time because the machine made it and we can't change it. So that's the difference. So that's why sometimes we print in Pantone versus CMYK. And then the other side of it is, if we're only printing 2 colors, why print CMYK? It's going to cost us more to do 4 colors than it is going to be 2, right? So for you guys, I know your only world has been printing off a laser printer or an inkjet printer, but when you get to 10,000 brochures or 50,000 brochures, you can't print off a digital printer and have it economical. So you have to go to the printing process, offset printing, and actually use ink. Make sense?
Yeah. So right now, because it's our first project, we don't care about Pantones, and so we're just getting the cheap version, which is going to swap options, color mode, and change those to CMYK.
Correct. Yeah. I chose to work with Pantone because sometimes for me it's easier to choose color like this, right? I like to come in and pick my color and see it. You're more than welcome to do it though if you like to work with CMYK and do the sliders and move things around, and you can watch your little window change. But to me, this is much harder. I like to pick colors and see them and compare them together, but you are more than welcome to do whatever works the best, and I can always come back in and convert them when I select my Pantone, so it doesn't really matter to me, right? So it makes it work either way. Whatever your choice is to choose color and how you're going to choose them works. Because once we save them, they now become Pantone and you didn't, or CMYK, and you didn't even know I ever selected a Pantone color. All right?
All right.
Perfect. So let's go back into our package now that we know how to convert CMYK colors or to CMYK colors. So I'm going to pop back over to my package. Now you'll notice when I come into colors, no more Pantone, just 4 color process. And because I'm only going to print 4 of these, I don't need to have Pantone colors, and I'm not matching to a corporate identity, so I'm all good. And this orange and now this greenish blue is going to be printed using these colors instead of the individual Pantones. So now I'm good to go. The last part of this is printer settings, and this has to do with the printer itself. My settings are set up for the printer at school, but obviously this isn't going to matter to the printer once he gets it because he's going to set it up to his own printer. So we don't have to worry about any of this. And the last part are external plugins. And Christian, you sent me a file the other day that you have a plugin for that I do not have. Sometimes that can cause some problems because if I don't have the plugin and it's a requirement for the file to get the plugin, it won't open. Luckily yours opened fine. I didn't have any issues with it. But just note that if you add additional things into your InDesign, maybe there's, I don't know, they have plugins for all kinds of stuff, for color systems, for grids, for graphics. If you add anything in, make sure you're including those. Usually if it's a part of the InDesign file, it will tell you here what plugins that you've added. And these would be outside sources that you purchased and then added it into your InDesign. So if you haven't done anything, you're probably fine. But if you find as you go forward, as you're working, you add some of those in, make sure it gets packaged with it because your vendor won't be able to open your file without it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Once I have all those features done, I can just double check my summary. I can also select down here to create a printing instructions option. So if I click that, I'm just going to do it just to show you what it does. If I click on my package at this point, it's going to make sure that I have it saved. I did do some changes to my color, so it wants me to make sure this document is saved, which I'm more than happy to do. And now it's going to pop up and it's going to ask me where I want to save this. And I'm just going to go hit my desktop so that way. And then this is going to be my newsletter test. You guys put your name on this. It's going to be a folder that you guys are going to save this package to. And once you have that, it's going to then ask you for printing instructions. That's where I selected that option. And for this, I always like to make sure that the printer has this embedded in there. And I usually just put my email, but you can also include your company name and a phone number if you want to. Not that any specific instructions are probably going to be looked at here, but I would definitely leave some kind of contact information. You created this document, and it's a really good idea that if someone picked this up, say, 3 months from now to do the next newsletter, and they open this file and they're like, I have no idea what this person did, they'd be able to at least send you an email and say, hey, can you help me out here, right? Or the printer can contact you and say, hey, we didn't get any information on this, but I saw your email in here and I have a question. Can I shoot you, can you give me a call? So it just helps to have that. And I'm going to hit continue here, and this is going to take you to the last part, which is basically the folder that I'm creating. And down here is the most important part. I always want to copy my fonts. You're going to note that it... Go ahead.
Do we have to do the printing instructions?
The printing instructions, you should have your name and your email address attached to that, yes.
All right.
So down here, we always want to copy fonts. You're going to notice that it will not copy Adobe fonts or non-Adobe CJK fonts. The Adobe fonts are the ones that come from Typekit because their assumption is that anyone that's using InDesign already is going to have the ability to be able to download them from their own Typekit account. So it will not bring in any fonts if you chose to use those from the Typekit option. So if you downloaded them from Adobe's font house, it's not going to bring those. So just want you to be aware of that. We always want to make sure that copy linked graphics is always here and that updated linked graphic links are here. That means that any files that you brought in, images or graphics, you're going to be able to grab and to put into this folder because without those, I won't be able to see them. And then the last part is using the document hyphenation exceptions. We didn't do any on this one. I always check this though because going forward, next project, I'm going to start teaching you how to do hyphenations properly, and you're going to definitely want this on or it reflows all of your text and we don't want that. So we're definitely going to keep that on all the time. Now, this one is not checked because this is all about hidden layers. Now, we didn't do any hidden layers here. Sometimes that happens if you're working, say, on a newsletter or a brochure where you're doing variable options and you're only choosing to print one of those options. You may have a layer for a different cover, or you may have a layer that you're doing an option for different content. We're not going to get into that at this point, so I don't need to have fonts or any links from hidden layers because we're not doing anything with that. But if you are and you're using one file to create multiple layers that are hidden and open at certain times, this is what you'd want to make sure that you've got checked, so that way it doesn't give the printer a hard time. But we're not doing that. I'm going to include the IDML file, which is a backup file to your file. That's always good to have. And we're also going to include making a final PDF while we make this process. And I can also choose what style I want the PDF to be. For me, press quality is the default, and that one works great, so I'm going to keep it at press quality. And then in the end, if you want to review the report, which basically gives you a tally of everything that we looked at when we first looked at the package, you can also do that. I don't ever check this though because it's not really that valuable. If the printer needs it, they can go in and look at it themselves, just through the instructions. So I keep that one deselected. So the default settings that you're seeing show up work out great, but I wanted to explain to you what each of them are. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit package. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to save the fonts and all my graphics, make the PDF and my IDM file all at one time, and put that into a folder. And when this is done, I'm going to show you what that looks like. All right. So over here on my desktop, there is a folder. It won't let me take it over there. Newsletter test folder. So let me open that up. And in here, you're going to see, here's my document fonts, here's my links folder, this is my newsletter. So this is like the information that we looked at when we did the package, right? It tells me the date it was created, the person that created it, here's my email address. So like I said, they can get all that information. And then here is my final INDD. This is the actual file. This is my backup file, right? So that gives you a little backup. And then here's my PDF file. So I can look at this as a PDF, or I can look at this as a regular, but the fonts are all in here, all the fonts that I used, and then any of the links that I chose are also in here too. So now this folder that I've created, I can take this and I can upload this into my OneDrive and share it with me, so that way I have all the pieces of your document, your original InDesign file, and the final PDF, and I'm your printer, so I can take all that now and I can go to press and print this out for you. So let me go to, let me go into, what? Didn't mean to make it that small. I'm just trying to stay within my window here. All right. I think I got out of that. So let's get into Blackboard and open that up because somehow I got out of that. So when I go into my email, and we've been in Blackboard before, but just to kind of review here, pop up into your little icons there and go into OneDrive. And then place your document in here wherever you feel that you would like it. So let's see, do I have a folder for page layout? Look at that, I do, right down there. So I'm going to take this newsletter folder, I'm going to drop it into my page layout. It's always good to stay organized. It's going to tell me if it's uploading. Right, so it's uploading 12 items here. So when that gets done, it'll tell me it's complete. Oh, it can't. Empty folders or empty files. Please try again. What? What's empty about it? They're all full. Sometimes it just makes me crazy, this whole program. Let's try this again.
How are we then?
Say that again?
How do we send it to you again?
I'm showing you right now, so continue to pay attention, okay?
I can't see the screen for some reason.
Okay, well, I'm videoing this too, Brandon, so you can always pop back in and watch the end of the video. All right? So after you make the folder, I just dragged it over into my OneDrive that I had opened up here. It turns it into a zip folder, which just compresses it down. It's 17 megs, so that's nice. So off to the left-hand side of this, there's always a little circle. I'm going to check that box, and I want to make sure that I share this. That's the part that's important, because if you don't share it with me, I won't be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the share button, and this is where you get to choose who you want to send it to. My email address is jmsusz@Bryant-Stratton. Of course, it probably won't come up because it's me. Right? And then I can just say anybody else that I want to share it with, or thanks for project 1, or you're so great, whatever, whatever you feel. And then send that. And that link now will get sent to me, and I'll be able to see your whole project and open it up and grade it. If you don't do the share part, I can't see it. So that makes it kind of hard. The other option too is that you can always create a folder just for page layout that you can share, and then anything you put into that folder, I'll be able to see. You just need to send me an email that says, hey, by the way, I added this in. It's all ready to go for you to review. What I like about doing this is that it allows for me to visually see what you've done, and I can also date timestamp that, so I know exactly when you uploaded it. So if there's any discrepancies, it will allow for me to see that. Okay?
All right.
All right. So, package. Well, obviously, finish your newsletter. Make sure all of the details are done. Package it, and then upload it into your OneDrive, and then share it with me. If you do those 3 steps, you'll be ready for submission, and you'll be able to get credit for it, and I can grade it this week. And you'll have your first grade on the table. I did post, I think I posted the rubric for this project, right? Christian, you asked me about that?
Yeah, I did. I was trying to make sure that I checked all the boxes,
Right.
Because I am really I really want to really do well, and I'm just gonna make sure that I get this packaged today.
Right. So you're getting credit for the PDF, which basically the computer does for you. You're getting credit that all your links are attached, that everything is set up in the newsletter properly, that your images are formatted correctly, that we don't have any weird skewing that's happening, right? Make sure you're checking your X and your Y axis for your images, that your text is set up to work with your grid, right? All those little details that we talked about. So make sure that you're able to get all those done. And then put it up into OneDrive after you do your package, and go ahead and share that with me. That's it. It's just a few little things. All right. Any other questions you guys have?
No.
No.
All right. Off with you then.
Okay, so we're gonna rendezvous for the next class at about 12:30ish.
Actually, can we do 12:45? I've got another meeting at noon I've got to pop into for half an hour. It'll just give me a few minutes to grab some lunch.
Absolutely. I was actually going to ask for some